one of the stories that has enjoyed the most views and interactions on the internet this week has been the story of the announcement that South Africa has decided that holders of Ghanaian passports can visit their country without visas. The announcement was made via a post on South Africa's Home Affairs Twitter handle, and it's since gone viral. So what does it mean exactly for Ghanaians? Well, the South African government and of course the Ghanaian government, and for economic growth between the two countries, what exactly will the implications be? I'm very happy to have with us in the studio Thapelo Madumane. I hope I've said that right.
Thapelo Madumane, yes.
Wonderful. Mr. Madumane is the Deputy High Commissioner to Ghana. Let's have a conversation about this. Mr. Madumane, how nice to meet you. Thank you for making the time.
Thanks for inviting me. Thank you for having me.
Now, this is great news for many Ghanaians who have desires to visit South Africa for tourism and for all other purposes. But let's understand the detail of this. When will it begin? And is this open to every Ghanaian with a passport?
Thank you very much. Since the budget speech of Minister Motsoaledi on Wednesday, on the 10th, I've been inundated with calls of people wanting to know exactly what it means. There was a misreporting somewhat, where an impression was created that the lifting of visas is immediate. There's going to be a process. Actually, during his speech, the minister mentioned a number of countries, such as Qatar, such as Saudi Arabia, Cuba, Sao Tome and Principe. But the very next line, he said, we need to immediately begin negotiations with these countries so that we finalize how the visa-free regime will work. Meaning that we need, as my government has taken the decision, of course, to say we need to have a visa-free regime with Ghanaians traveling to South Africa. But there's going to be a process. As we speak now, the status quo remains. You will still need a visa when you're traveling to South Africa, but the process of negotiation between the two countries now commences, where the agreement will be a product of those negotiations. Right. And then at an opportune time, an announcement will be made, which will reflect the details as they would have been agreed upon by the two countries.
All right. Well, it's progress in the direction of those who desire,
of course,
to visit your country. So help us understand these negotiations. What exactly are the things on which the two countries must agree in order for this to become practical?
Actually, what happens usually when there are such negotiations is that specialized units or relevant officials in immigration and customs and all that, they will form those subcommittees, and then they will sit together to iron out what does it mean. It could be that they decide, maybe they say for starters, tourists who are going to South Africa for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, it is subject to that negotiation. Right. Then they will say, in a year, you can go to South Africa for this many days. It could be 60, it could be 90, it could be 100, without a visa. So meaning that a passport that you have then will be the document that you need to travel. But like I said, that will be determined by the negotiations between our two countries. That will be done through diplomatic channels.
Now, South Africa historically has been a country that requires visas from most places, from most other countries. What is informing this policy decision to lift that visa requirement for some countries?
The number of countries that do not require visa for South Africa should be standing at around 75, and 16 of those will be in the SADC region. But if you remember, we have consistently said that the future of South Africa is inextricably linked to that of the continent. We have said repeatedly that we can never have any part of the continent being an island of plenty or stability in a sea of African insecurity and want. So you will also be aware that my government signed and ratified the free trade area, an instrument of which has been deposited with the Secretariat. So we are moving towards that integration. Finally, Africa's got to integrate. Finally, Africa's got to unite. Economies of scale will tell you that our fragmented markets put us at a decided disadvantage.
Yeah. There must be a downside, though, to opening up your borders a little more than you had in the past. What is that?
The downside? Not as far. Those are the issues if there are downsides. Now remember, we're going to negotiate. Now as we negotiate, it cannot be that South Africa is the only one where you say there will be downside. Why will it be a downside for South Africa and not a downside to Ghana? So they're going to sit down and look at the pros and cons, at the challenges that they may face together and come up with solutions together. And then after, that's why there are specialized subcommittees and what have we in the negotiations. Then they will identify such. It will be presumptuous of me to say 1, 2, 3, 4 will be the challenges that we will face.
All right. I was actually thinking in general terms of a country allowing more nations to visit them without visa requirement. Is there generally a downside to making your country more accessible?
Actually, what I'm seeing just positives for now. Because let's look at it this way. It will not only be South Africa. If all African countries are moving towards lifting visa requirements, making it easier for African tourists to travel within Africa. I was arguing with some of my peers the other day, and I was saying, Africa has got all that you need. We've got the fauna and the flora, we have the architect, we have the seas, we have the beautiful, if you want to go on the safari, you can go on the safari. The Cape Coast, steeped in history. Why would a South African visitor want to go to Paris, go to England, go to any other place when we have so much to explore? We start by encouraging local tourism, regional tourism, and African tourism. And in this beautiful continent of ours, we have all that we need.
Help me understand, at the moment, do South Africans need visas to visit Ghana?
Yes, they do.
Okay, good. So that would probably form part of what needs to be agreed upon, whether there will be reciprocity in the arrangement.
Exactly. Right now, what we know is that we have a visa agreement on the waiver of visa for diplomatic and official passport carriers, but ordinary passport, yes, you still need a visa.
Right. Now, how hospitable, and I know you literally have to say they are the most hospitable people in the world, but tell me really, how welcoming are the people of South Africa to others from around the world?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Here's the thing, though. I will be in denial if I say we do not have a problem or challenges with crime. And that from time to time, the ugly head of xenophobia raises its head. And over the past years, we've been so experienced that we know exactly that criminality starts everything. You know, when there are criminal syndicates or some criminals, usually what they seek to do, they don't target the strongest in a community. They would look at the weakest or those who don't have power. And ordinarily they look at the people from other countries and say, it is easy to blame a foreigner. If guys don't work and they want something, they say, that guy, then they target them. That is why my government has been quite severe in pursuing those who break the law or make other people from Africa especially feel unwelcome. Because I can assure you, if you go to South Africa, we are a toast, a mixture, if you will, of all African countries. There will not be any country that does not have, an African country, that does not have a sizable in South Africa. They are most welcome. And we are all the more richer for that.
Do you think you've got a handle on it? There's the occasional xenophobia problem. Do you think you've got it controlled?
Here's the issue. It is like any other crime. You must have mechanisms in place so that we do not know when it will rear its ugly head again. But what we are doing, we are engaging our people, we're engaging our communities, and we have structures in place. My my department has decided that from time to time, it will be meeting with members of the diplomatic corps to update them regularly, not only when there are attacks, even when there are some challenges, to say we are experiencing challenges with this and that, how do we solve this? Because it is not just the South African problem. That is why we sought the intervention and participation of the African Diplomatic Corps.
Now, I think it would be interesting to pick your brain on this. You've been in Ghana for a while, and not so long ago, Ghana had its own little friction with one of its closest neighbors, Nigeria, closest in terms of relationship. All over, again, some criminal acts that had occurred here in Ghana. Now, I wonder whether, with your experience of South Africa having to battle xenophobia, whether your antenna was pricked when you saw the way some Ghanaians were treating Nigerian residents here in Ghana, and did you wish somebody would ask you for a bit of experience and advice on it?
There is no automatic panacea to these challenges. Every situation as it arises would be peculiar. And I'm quite sure that the Ghanaian authority assist with the matter and that they will handle it accordingly.
Right, let's talk a bit more about South Africa. And now, if all of these negotiations go well and we see the opening of borders, so to speak, between our two countries, what sort of effect do you think it'll have on tourism in South Africa? Have you got projections? Do you have any idea how things will look?
Look, well, we are confident that both countries will see an upsurge of tourism. In the past year, there was over 27% increase of tourists coming from Ghana going to South Africa. I do not have the statistics of the flow in the opposite direction, but I'm quite sure, I'm confident actually that it is going also to increase. The South Africans have a soft spot for Ghanaians. If for anything, you remember we even hijacked your national team in 2010.
Well, you tried.
And we called them Bagana Bagana.
Yes.
But also your cuisines, your kenke, your kelewele, your red. Actually, they are served in the streets of Pretoria.
Oh, really?
Yes.
By the Ghanaians?
By the Ghanaian expert.
Fantastic.
And your fabric.
Wow.
The fabric that you have, you go in the streets of Johannesburg, you have the best tailors, you have all those nice garments and all that. Yeah.
Wow. Well, we look forward to it. Your Excellency, Thapelo Madumane, thank you so much for your time with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.